In the past, there was a man named Claude Sirius who held the esteemed title of first-class sorcerer, a rare honor shared by only 10 individuals worldwide. Stories circulated claiming his magic could manipulate the very stars themselves. At just 17 years old, he was appointed as a professor at the Royal Academy of Magic, where he was hailed as a charismatic leader, destined to guide the next generation of sorcerers. However, his tale took a mysterious turn when he vanished without a trace. But this story isn't only about him, it's about a clumsy pink-haired witch, a cat with an overly confident attitude, and many others. At a different time on the outskirts of the capital city, a girl with a wand stood atop a cliff. Another girl below questioned her decision to jump from such a height. Disregarding the concern, the girl on the cliff silenced her friend and began chanting a spell for flight, placing her trust in her magical staff. With her friend watching eagerly, the girl took the leap, fully expecting to soar through the air. Instead, she plummeted to the ground below, landing face first and causing her nose to bleed. Amidst her embarrassment, the black-haired girl named Arya couldn't contain her laughter, finding joy in her friend's misfortune. The girl with pink hair, Spika, told Arya to be quiet. Arya then suggested that Spika should try martial arts instead. Spika said she was determined to become a sorcerer no matter what. Arya sarcastically cheered for her. Spika wanted to attend the Diana Academy of Magic, where Claude Sirius used to teach. It had always been her dream to study there and become a first-class sorcerer like her idol. Arya wondered how, since Spika didn't have any magic in her. Spika said it was a process and practicing flying every day should help. Arya called it jumping instead of flying. Arya reminded Spika that Claude wasn't popular anymore after the heretics' terrorism attacks 2 years ago. People said Claude had cowardly left his students behind. Spika said everyone had their own heroes and looked upset. She told Arya to go home because she'd just be teasing her. Arya said she was only worried since Spika had a low chance of getting into the Magic Academy. She suggested hiring a tutor, but Spika said her big family didn't have much money. Arya decided to help Spika since they were in it together. She pointed her wand at the well and used magic to control the water inside, turning it into a huge heart shape. She offered to teach Spika instead. For payment, she asked for Spika's help. Spika knew Arya was only teasing her. Spika went back home feeling frustrated. She climbed onto the roof of her house, trying to psych herself up to practice flying again. However, despite her efforts, she still couldn't succeed. This failure was nothing new for her family. Spika sighed in pain, thinking about the upcoming exam in less than a year. She remembered Arya's warning that she wouldn't be able to get into the academy at this rate. She regretted not having enough money to hire a tutor. Suddenly, someone told her to be quiet because he had been awakened from his sleep. A black cat advised Spika to stop harming herself. Spika was surprised to hear and see a talking cat and questioned if she had unlocked some kind of magic that allowed her to communicate with animals. The cat was equally astonished that Spika could understand him. She speculated if the cat might be a bakaneko, a kind of yokai. The cat then approached Spika and tapped her knees with his paws. Using magic, he lifted Spika into the sky. After a moment, she fell back down, and the cat insisted that she not refer to him as a bakaneko. He revealed that he used to be a human, and on top of that, a sorcerer. Spika was shocked and trembling. The cat claimed he had been cursed but could still use magic. Spika quickly knelt down and asked the cat to teach her magic, regardless of who he was. She just wanted to learn. The cat thought she was crazy, but Spika insisted she wanted to get into the Diana Academy. The cat questioned if she knew how tough it was to get in there. Spika knew, and that's why she needed help. The Royal Diana Academy was the best magic school around, and its graduates always landed top jobs or worked for the royal family. The cat refused to help since he wouldn't gain anything. Spika said she'd do anything except pay with money. That caught the cat's interest and he grinned evilly. Shyly, Spika suggested she could even pay with her body, but the cat bluntly refused. The black cat realized it would be a waste to miss the opportunity since they could communicate and Spika would do anything for him. The cat suddenly became kind, accepting Spika. Spika thanked her and introduced herself as Spica Virgo. The cat then shared his first request, which turned out to be for leisure activities like food and massage. Spika's siblings then found her talking alone, and the cat was surprised by how big her family was. Spika's siblings found it strange that she was talking to the cat. Spika realized she was the only one who could communicate with the black cat. She then asked the cat to teach her magic soon. The cat agreed and suggested they move somewhere else. The two arrived at the busy streets of the capital. Spika wondered if they would start training soon. The cat instructed her to stand in a specific spot and asked her to say a spell while raising her hand. Spika did as she was told. A waitress then brought some beer and told Spika it would cost her 300 G. It turned out the cat just wanted to have some beer. He enjoyed his drink until Spika grabbed his neck roughly. Spika started to doubt if the cat would really teach her magic, but the cat promised he would. However, he realized Spika might cause trouble, but he had already had his fun. He decided to give her an impossible task and asked for one more favor before teaching her. They ventured next to the royal library, where all sorts of books, from simple picture books to ancient spell books, were housed. Some legendary tomes were also tucked away, inaccessible to the public, like the Book of Provided, said to grant endless wisdom to its reader. Spika found herself bewildered by it all, but the cat, in its own way, clarified that the book could bestow the power of omniscience. With resolve, Spika expressed her final plea, to locate the book and lift her curse. Inquiring about the book's whereabouts, Spika was met with the cat's assurance that it should be somewhere within the library. Overwhelmed, she exclaimed at the sheer volume of books present. The cat granted her a month to search but offered little in the way of assistance, prompting Spika to question if the cat would simply idle away the time. It then demonstrated a caution. If a non-human attempted to remove a book from the shelves, the mother book would detect it and trigger an alarm, summoning guards to the scene. Unable to undertake the task itself, the cat deferred it to Spika's capability, despite her apprehension. As doubts clouded her mind, the cat reconsidered taking her on as its apprentice. However, Spika, fueled by determination, suddenly shifted gears and psyched herself up to embark on the quest for the elusive tome. The cat watched Spika and knew that finding the book in a month would be impossible. He didn't want to take an apprentice since it would be a hassle. Then he saw the newspaper board and read the article about Claude Sirius, whose reputation was in shambles. As the cat tried to walk away, he suddenly heard Spika scream and found her turned into a cat girl after opening a book about polymorphing. The cat warned her that some books would trigger just by opening them. Spika then went through all sorts of books in the library until she found herself scared. The cat knew Spika would give up after 3 days. However, contrary to the cat's expectations, Spika went to the library every day. She read tons of books and even tried to sneak into the restricted area. She even fell asleep while reading. The cat then found her writing something instead of searching for the book. Spika claimed she was learning how to read runes. She recalled that the Book of Providence was a legendary tome and she assumed that it was written in an ancient language. Since she didn't know anything, she was learning it. Surprised, the cat found it as a good idea and didn't know Spika was the studious type. Spika confessed that she was not a reader, but as deeper as she got into it, she was getting interested and wanted to learn more. The cat was impressed, but he warned her that it was time to close the library. At the same time, it had already been a month since Spika started. Spika asked the cat for more time since she really wanted to enroll in Diana Magic Academy. The cat had been curious about why Spika seemed so focused on Diana. Spika then admitted her desire to become a top-notch sorcerer like her role model, Claude. The cat reminded her that Claude had been branded as a coward. Spika dismissed this, insisting it was just gossip and she knew Claude's true strength. She recounted the time when heretics attacked Diana. Spika had been nearby and got caught in the chaos. She witnessed the deaths of those around her and was resigned to a similar fate. But then Claude appeared just in time, saving her and defeating the monster. He praised Spika for her survival instincts, calling her a fighter. Spika felt grateful that Claude had rescued her like a hero. She aspired to be like him, a sorcerer with the power to protect others. The cat had been stunned. He had said there was nothing to gain from protecting others. Spika got mad at the cat and realized that he deserved to be cursed into a cat in the first place. The cat walked away as he said he understood Spika's feelings. Spika was on the edge and wondered if there was anything she could do at that moment. She looked around until she noticed a huge book with symbols on the cover. The cat agreed that they were symbols, and Spika read them out loud. She figured out the symbols meant summoner, and the book started shining and opening wide. The book surprised the two, and it showed a path inside. The cat exclaimed that it was a secret passage and was sure that they could find the Book of Providence inside. He told Spika to get in before the guards arrived. However, they didn't know that someone had been observing them from the shadows. The two ventured into the dark passage until they found themselves in a place illuminated by stars. The cat explained that they were in a separate dimension that held forbidden texts and top-secret tomes. As they wondered if the book they sought was there, a large stone tablet suddenly spoke, introducing itself as the Book of Providence. The two were startled, and Spika attempted to introduce herself, but the Book of Providence interrupted, knowing her already as it was the Book of Providence. Spika then requested to lift the curse on the cat. The Book of Providence revealed that the cat was afflicted by the curse of reincarnation. Unlike polymorphing, this curse completely changes the being, erasing its previous form. Spika questioned if it could be undone. The Book of Providence suggested that rebirth magic might be able to reverse it, a magic that only Spika possessed. Spika was feeling confused and admitted she didn't know how to cast spells. Then, the Book of Providence reminded her of how easily she recovered from injuries in the past. Spika remembered her attempts at using flying magic. The Book of Providence claimed that power was dormant within Spika. Spika was surprised, and the cat thought it was a strange coincidence that they had met. The cat realized this was his only chance to break the curse. Spika didn't know what to do next. The Book of Providence suggested she transfer her magic to the cat by kissing him. Spika felt suddenly embarrassed considering she was still young. but the cat insisted she think of it as CPR. Spika hesitated, feeling embarrassed about giving up her first kiss to someone, especially since she was inexperienced. The Book of Providence then corrected himself, saying it wasn't a kiss on the lips, but rather on the cat's rear end. Spika and the cat were startled and began to protest when they heard the news. The Book of Providence then explained that absorbing magic through a medical-like method was the most effective. The cat thought it was too extreme, and Spika agreed, declaring she wouldn't give up her first kiss for something like that. As Spika wondered if there was another option, the cat sensed someone approaching. It recognized the newcomer as a guard from the smell. Surprisingly, the guard didn't come to shoo them away but to warn them about an attack on the library. All of a sudden, a beast named Orthus appeared, and the cat recognized it as the same monster used by the heretics earlier. Even though the military was supposed to have stopped the heretics, they might still have come to the library for forbidden books. As they ran away, the cat encouraged Spika to hang on until reinforcements from the royal capital arrived. The Orthus then began breathing fire to attack them, and the two barely dodged it. They hid behind a bookshelf. The cat suggested that Spika should lure the monster while he escaped. Spika objected. The cat said he was just a poor kitty, and Spika exclaimed that she was a poor girl. As another idea, the cat suggested that Spika should undo his butthole. Spika was shocked since she didn't want to do it, saying her life would be over if she kissed a former human's butthole. The cat said they would die doing nothing, but Spika didn't want to. The cat had turned his back on Spika, declaring that she lacked the skills to accomplish something. Spika remembered her ambition of becoming a first-class sorcerer. As the cat walked away, renouncing their agreement, Spika attempted to follow him, but Orthus appeared before them. Seeing a stream of fire hurtling towards her, Spika realized her life was in jeopardy. However, the cat leaped in front of her, employing wind magic to deflect the flames. Struggling to maintain his stance, he urged Spika to move aside, using his magic to propel her to safety, albeit calling her a challenging apprentice. Spika witnessed the cat being consumed by the inferno. She couldn't fathom being rescued once more, especially after aspiring to become someone who saves others. She recognized that she hadn't changed since that day 2 years prior when she first desired to become a potent sorcerer. Screaming at the top of her lungs, she dashed towards the flames. Discovering the cat unconscious, she began apologizing for disregarding his instructions to flee. The Orthus had been menacingly walking toward them. Spika knew she was powerless against such a monster. She decided to try the one thing she could do at that moment. She calmed herself down and kissed the cat's behind. Suddenly something shone and the curse was broken. The Orthus then breathed another fire attack, but suddenly a man claimed the dog barked at the wrong tree. The fire breath turned into a tornado, and someone flew with his sorcerer hat and robe. Claude Sirius felt great getting his body back after 2 years while holding Spika in his arms. Spika was shocked to see Claude, whom she idolized. Claude then wondered if the Orthus wanted some treats, and he used his magic to create a huge crystal arrow. He then fired off the arrow, striking the Orthus. The monster then started freezing until it turned into a statue. The Orthus was defeated, and the heretic who had been watching nearby finally left. Spika was left speechless when she saw Claude's incredible magic after so many years. It was hard to believe that the cat she'd been interacting with was actually Claude all this time. Claude was puzzled why Spika hadn't figured it out earlier. Reflecting on Claude's unpredictable behavior as a cat, Spika realized that Claude had a complex personality, quite different from the sweet Claude she remembered from 2 years ago. Then it hit her. She had kissed Claude in a certain spot, and Claude had reacted by pushing her away as a form of punishment. She ended up falling to the floor, feeling embarrassed, while Claude warned her not to spill the secret to anyone else. He also cautioned her against fantasizing about changing people's personalities, emphasizing that he was his own person. Spika felt a wave of sadness as she recognized that Claude had once again come to her rescue, just like he did a few years ago. Claude attempted to leave, insisting that their tool was already broken. Spika tried to prevent him because she required a skilled person. Suddenly, Claude's appearance changed drastically as he sprouted cat ears and a tail. He reverted to his cat form, bewildered by the transformation. This time, Spika decided to leave the situation. Claude halted her, attempting to act adorable and suggesting they shared a common fate. However, Spika was no longer convinced by his words. Claude was furious and demanded answers from the Book of Providence about the strange occurrences. The book explained that Spika lacked experience and insisted that they needed to be equally skilled to break the curse completely. It warned that once Spika's magic was depleted, Claude would revert to his cat form. Realizing the situation, Claude understood that he needed to train Spika to become a top-notch sorcerer like himself. This gave Spika a glimmer of hope. Claude assured her that they both stood to benefit from this arrangement. Spika, however, doubted her abilities since she didn't possess any magic. Claude encouraged her to pursue becoming a first-class sorcerer under his guidance. Worried about being accepted into the academy as a cat, Claude pondered their next steps. He instructed Spika to address him as teacher instead of master, and recalled his past as an educator at Diana, confident that the dean would welcome him back. Determined, Claude decided to teach at the school and hoped that Spika would be prepared within the next 3 years. Overwhelmed with disbelief, Spika couldn't believe that her idol would be her teacher. Unbeknownst to Claude, his confidence would soon be challenged as he was assigned to oversee Pandora's box, the most troublesome class. Soon after, Claude reached out his hand towards Spika. Spika was excited to finally meet her idol in real life. Then Claude got serious and asked her for a favor. Spika's expression darkened when Claude asked her to kiss his rear end, as a cat. Spika then woke up in her bed and realized it was a nightmare. Claude knocked on her window to wake her up for work. Spika fumbled her words and accidentally mentioned Claude's forbidden part, which made the cat mad. She felt embarrassed about having such a dream. For those who might have forgotten, Spika's goal was to enroll in the Diana Magic Academy, and her current master, Claude Sirius, was a first-class sorcerer who had turned into a cat. The time had finally come for Spika to train her magic. The two then went outside, and Claude started the class by asking about the most important factor in being able to use magic. Spika suggested that it was having a positive mindset. However, her answer disgusted Claude. He claimed it wasn't something as vague as that and drew something on the tree trunk, stating that it was magical attributes. He explained that everyone was born with a specific type of magic, making it almost impossible to learn something outside that attribute. He pointed out that Spika couldn't use flying magic like he could. Spika panicked and asked what her type was. Claude said there were 12 attributes, each representing a star sign since the moon and stars are the source of magic. He listed the 12 attributes as follows: Capricorn for gluttony magic, Aquarius for water magic, Pisces for tidal magic, Aries for flame magic, Taurus for fortification magic, Gemini for light magic, Cancer for metal magic, Leo for beast magic, Virgo for plant magic, Libra for psychic magic, Scorpius for poison magic, and Sagittarius for wind magic. Spika realized why she couldn't fly. Only those with Sagittarius attributes could do that. She was angry that Arya, who knew all about it, hadn't told her. She then excitedly asked her master what her type was since she was a Virgo. Claude explained that Virgo was associated with Demeter, the goddess of harvest. He said Spika could manipulate plants like growing them at will, making flowers bloom anywhere, and bringing crops to fruition. Spika became excited and suddenly remembered the Book of Providence's words about her rebirth magic. She wondered if it was a Virgo thing. Claude seriously explained that rebirth magic didn't really have a type associated with it. He said it was something special to Spika. Spika then suggested focusing on her rebirth magic. However, Claude suddenly became serious and told her not to think about it and not to tell anyone else about it. Spika just nodded her head, as it was her first time seeing Claude being serious. Claude told her to start practicing her Virgo magic by growing a seedling. He instructed her to use her staff because it helped her focus her mana into a single point, and the spell acted as a switch to activate the magic. He also advised her to visualize the seedling growing in her mind, explaining that the clearer the image, the stronger the magic would be. After some time concentrating, Spika raised her staff and began chanting a spell. She kept visualizing her Virgo magic and used the spell Anima to instantly grow the seedling. Spika was surprised that she succeeded and quickly asked Claude for his feedback. However, to Claude, it was a simple task like riding a bike with training wheels. He told her not to be satisfied with something simple and to focus on becoming a first-class sorcerer to undo his curse. Spika got mad at Claude, fully recalling how self-serving he was. Claude claimed Spika should be thankful to him for teaching her something simple. Spika was grateful that Claude was teaching her. She knew that Claude was a pragmatist from the start, but he was really heartless. For Spika, it was her first time using magic in her life, and she hoped that she could have at least received a little praise. She told herself to stop idolizing Claude, and it was time to say goodbye to her first love and just focus on the path of magic. Suddenly, Claude shouted, telling Spika to stop her magic. Spika wondered what he meant and just realized that her spell hadn't stopped yet. The grown seedling violently grew upward as the branches caught Spika's leg, holding her high up in the sky. Claude could see that Spika couldn't control her magic well and claimed she didn't pass yet. Soon after, Claude was shocked because it was the first time he had seen a student so bad at controlling their own magic. He helped Spika get down and she realized that she wasn't talented at all. Claude was surprised that Spika had thought otherwise. Spika was in despair because she knew she couldn't achieve her goals at this rate. Suddenly, Spika's little brother appeared, telling her that their mother needed help because there was trouble in their orchard. Spika went to their farm, where her mother was apologizing for the trouble and explained that she had broken her foot after falling from a ladder. She asked Spika to take over the harvesting, but Spika complained that she had to prepare for her exams. Claude suggested harvesting using magic since that would be like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Spika refused, but Claude reminded her that her family was broke and wouldn't be able to pay for the tuition. Claude instructed her to do her farm duties while using magic for the next 6 months. saying that would be all her training. Spika worried if that would be enough for her to pass the entrance exam since she still couldn't control her magic well. Claude told her not to worry and to just give it a try. Spika told Claude that it would be his fault if anything went wrong. She then used her magic to control the tree branches to pick up the fruits. However, her control was off and the fruits were damaged in the process. She realized she had used too much force, but she also noticed that she was starting to gain control. She remembered how important visualization was in using magic and recalled how she had been harvesting fruits in the orchard since she was little. She felt confident that she could manage the harvesting with magic. Claude reassured her not to worry because he would take care of the damaged fruits. Spika then understood Claude's true intention, getting free food. Thus, Spika's life as a farmer continued. She went on to harvest oranges with nose-like protrusions. She did her best to harvest using magic, but it was still tricky. She kept using her magic for pruning tree branches, controlling pests and birds, and weatherproofing the orchard. It was tiring for Spika, but she knew that by the end of the day, the delicious oranges she harvested would make it all worth it. Days went by as Spika continued tending to the farm. In the afternoons, she trained her endurance. At night, she studied magic. 6 months later, the day before the exam, Spika used her only Virgo magic, Anima, to harvest the oranges on the higher branches with precision. None of the oranges were damaged as they neatly filled the crates. Everyone, including Spika, saw that she had finally succeeded. She, her mother, and Claude then started advertising the oranges they had grown with care. Everyone celebrated that the work was finally done, and Spika's mother was proud that Spika had become a farmer on her own. Suddenly, Spika realized that her dream was not to become the best orange farmer, but to become a first-class sorcerer. She had focused only on farming for the past 6 months and wondered if it was enough since she only knew Anima. She asked if she would pass, but Claude mentioned that Diana's exams changed every year, and the passing rate was only 10%. He hoped Spika would be lucky. Spika couldn't help but worry. Soon after, Arya started making fun of Spika, assuming that Spika would fail the entrance exam. She was surprised when Spika managed to learn magic. Spika exclaimed that she would somehow pass. She felt horrible and even started feeling her bag get heavy due to the pressure. The students were then called to board the carriages. Inside, Spika became nervous since everyone looked strong. Arya claimed she was not worried since she was the strongest among them. Spika hoped that she could be as confident as Arya. Just then, everyone started wondering where they were since they had somehow ended up in the mountains instead of the royal capital. Suddenly, a nearby cliff started shaking, causing an earthquake. Everyone in the carriage got startled as the road became blocked. They were all shocked to get caught in a rock slide. Just then, the rocks started forming into something as if they were being controlled by magic until they formed a huge rock golem. Everyone was still surprised as they watched the golem raise its hand. It smashed the ground near the carriage and blew the students away. Everyone panicked, trying to escape the area. Spika asked what it was, and suddenly Claude appeared from her bag, claiming it was a golem. Spika was surprised to see him. Claude exclaimed that he definitely didn't follow her and certainly did not bribe the examiner. Putting that aside, he explained that golems are clay dolls that move on the orders of a sorcerer. Spika wondered if this was related to the heretics again, assuming they were targeting the students. Suddenly, Arya stepped forward, telling the golem to get lost since she had an exam to take. She then used her Aquarius magic to create a hydro cannon. She fired a huge ball of water at the golem, destroying it in one shot. Claude explained that Aquarians can bend water and enhance its power but need a lot of mana and a good head on their shoulders. He found Arya impressive. However, the golem began to regenerate. Spika wondered if it was impossible to destroy. Claude reminded her about the book she had read in the library. Spika then started remembering what she had learned. She knew that sorcerers could control their puppets using a core that acted like a heart. She noticed the core of the golem, which had writing on it. When a golem was brought to life, a sorcerer would imbue the core with emeth or truth. But if the E was removed, it would become meth or death. Spika decided to tell Arya about this discovery. Claude then called her stupid and questioned if Spika would waste the months she spent studying and training just to let someone else take credit. He suggested that she take down the golem herself. Spika felt anxious because she had spent the past months harvesting oranges. Claude urged her to see her friend risking her life and reminded Spika of her ambition to become a top-tier sorcerer. His words deeply affected Spika. Meanwhile, Arya was distracted and nearly got grabbed by the golem. Suddenly, a tree branch snatched her and pulled Arya away from the dangerous golem. Spika caught her just in time and breathed a sigh of relief. Arya was amazed that Spika had really used magic. Spika realized that her master's advice was correct and that she shouldn't be afraid. She then asked Arya if she could also fight as she knew the golem's weakness. However, she was still trembling with fear. Arya noticed that Spika seemed terrified. Spika admitted she was scared out of her wits, feeling like her heart was going to burst. Nevertheless, she was determined to become a sorcerer who could protect everyone. Her strong determination impressed Arya. Arya accepted Spika's help and assumed Spika had a plan. Spika then explained the inscription on the golem's core and how to defeat it, but Arya was confused. Spika asked her to smash the golem to pieces again with her magic, but Arya was out of mana after using her ultimate move. The golem interrupted them with a punch, and the girls managed to dodge it. Spika grew worried because they needed to break the golem first. The golem then turned towards the other students, who were just watching, and started forming a boulder in its hand. The students tried to run away, but the golem blocked their path by throwing the boulder. One student fell to the ground and trembled in fear as the golem approached. Spika ran toward the golem, and Arya asked what she was going to do. Spika exclaimed that she would stop the golem as she grabbed something from her pocket. Arya asked how, and Spika threw a lot of seeds around her. She then used her Virgo magic anima to speed up the growth of the seeds and entangle the golem with vines. The golem stopped moving, and Spika was glad. Arya was surprised because she knew Spika had spent the last 6 months farming. Claude agreed with that. However, he pointed out that Spika also built up her stamina and magic control during that time. Since she focused on only one spell, she mastered anima quickly. He recalled Spika getting worried and calling her foolish again, as she never realized her own potential. Seeing Spika asking to fight the golem too, Arya realized that Spika's goal of becoming a strong sorcerer wasn't just a whim. She couldn't believe Spika was serious and called the situation lame. Arya exclaimed that the only thing that made Spika cute was her clumsiness and how she failed at everything she tried. Spika then wondered what to do next after stopping the golem from moving. However, the golem's body started cracking until it broke into pieces. Spika cried when she saw how the golem cleverly split up to escape the vines. However, Claude said it was the perfect opportunity. Spika then realized that the core was exposed. She used anima again to gather a bundle of vines. She didn't have much time left and had to make her next attack count. Just then, the golem gathered a lot of rocks around it and started firing them towards Spika. Spika was taken aback but managed to block the flying rocks with her vines. She couldn't find a chance to take her shot and wondered if she would need to wait until the golem ran out of ammo, but her vines were weakening under the attack. As Spika thought she might die, an Aquarius magic activated and created an aqua sphere to protect her. Arya reminded her not to forget about her and wondered if Spika really thought she could take down the golem alone. However, Arya wanted to let Spika have the win this time and asked her to finish the job properly, or she would get mad. Spika thanked Arya for the support. When the aqua sphere disappeared, Spika used anima again to weave all her vines together and whipped them toward the golem's core. She struck the golem, which was currently regenerating, and managed to damage the part of the core where E was written. The damaged core then fell to the ground as the rest of the rocks turned into sand. Everyone watched what Spika did and cheered because they were finally safe. Spika's knees weakened and she fell to the ground. She was glad she had done it. Everyone was impressed by Spika's actions and Arya's strong magic. They were now afraid of seeing monsters among the examinees. Arya then confronted Spika and asked how she had become so strong. Spika said she was just lucky that Arya was with her. Someone then exclaimed that one does not simply defeat a golem with luck. A man and some other adults appeared and called Spika Examinee 201. Spika called the man creepy for knowing her name and assumed he was the villain who had controlled the golem. Claude said the man was Diana's vice principal. Spika was shocked, and Claude further explained that the vice principal could get pretty scary when angered. Justice Libra introduced himself to the examinees, and Spika worried that she had rudely called him a creepy old man. The examinees asked why Justice was there and if they would still make it on time for the entrance exam. Justice apologized to the kids and announced that the entrance exam was over. He then instructed the healers to treat any injured ones. Everyone was shocked and immediately realized that the golem was a setup. Claude had figured it out from the start because the golem's attacks were oddly missing. Spika sighed, thinking it would be the heretics again. The other examinees started complaining because they hadn't been able to show off their skills. Justice then claimed that among the sorcerers, there were those who did evil and those who did good. In Diana, they valued those who were pure of heart, and the entrance exam that had just happened showed him what he needed, specifically how the others acted when faced with a threat, whether they ran to save themselves, made a stand with their own magic, or used it to save others. He wanted to see if they would run from a challenge or face it. He further explained how Arya had first launched an attack despite the recklessness. Her command over her magic was excellent. On the other hand, Spika lacked variety, but she displayed courage unlike others, and with her sharp wit, she managed to defeat the golem. He then officially welcomed the two to Diana Magic Academy, which surprised Spika. He then said they would proceed with the formalities next time, since there were other groups. He asked the other examinees to improve themselves based on the recent event. He looked forward to seeing them at Diana. The examinees who didn't pass despaired. Despite passing, Arya still felt frustrated and realized she needed more training. Spika cried tears of joy and asked Claude if she had really passed. Claude told her not to get overdramatic since it was just the beginning. Spika pouted, realizing how strict her master was. Suddenly Spika heard Claude praise her for not running away and give her credit for it. Spika was surprised by the sudden praise. Claude called her an idiot for looking stunned and started worrying about getting back home. Spika got embarrassed as she thought she saw the real Claude for a moment. She reminded herself that Claude was just a stupid, irresponsible man. However, she wondered why she was happy to be praised by him, even a little. Still, if it had not been for Claude and his training, she would not have been able to master magic. If it had not been for Claude's taunting, she would not have found the resolve to beat the golem. She realized that Claude Sirius was someone pretty amazing after all. At Diana Magic Academy, someone kept calling the headmistress. The headmistress wondered what was wrong since she was peacefully preparing some tea. The teacher then claimed he had received a letter from Claude. The headmistress stopped pouring tea and was surprised that her idiotic apprentice was still alive. We changed the scene to one of the tourist attractions in Aldea, the Witch Hat World Tree. It was over 1,000 years old and reached a height of 900 meters. Going through its tunnel led to the magnificent Royal Academy of Magic, Diana. It was founded by the witch Selene about 1,000 years ago and had around 600 students in its middle and high school departments. Spika was in awe that she had actually made it into Diana. She saw different societies and research groups, and everything and everyone seemed graceful to her. She also thought the uniforms were cute, and she was already wearing one. Suddenly, Claude appeared and told her to stop acting silly. She was surprised to see her master, and Claude reminded her to call him teacher at school. He wanted to keep their master-apprentice relationship a secret. Spika also understood it was a secret that he turned into a cat. She complained to Claude about using up her mana and then turning into a cat. She was embarrassed about having to kiss a cat's butt every morning. Claude asked if Spika really hated it that much, and explained he couldn't help it because teaching as a cat would be impossible. Spika agreed. Claude reminded her that they were a team and with a smile asked Spika to achieve their dreams together. Spika felt like she was being tricked. He also told Spika not to worry about her coven since he had already talked to the headmistress. Spika didn't know what a coven was since she had come from a middle school before entering Diana. As Claude tried to explain what a coven was, a hot one-san stepped in. It was the headmistress named Jana. Claude quickly forced a smile. Spika was surprised by how young Jana looked. Jana said news of Claude's return was everywhere. She then opened a small portal and showed some students talking badly about Claude and his past. She chuckled at the students' comments. She told Claude to wait in her office to avoid any trouble with the students until after the coven announcements. Claude said he needed to talk to her about covens. He told Spika not to do anything foolish and went with the headmistress. Spika wondered if they were friends. Suddenly, Jana sounded serious as she asked where her foolish apprentice had been all this time. In response, Claude wondered what kind of spell Jana had used to stay looking young for the past 2 years. Jana warned Claude to watch his words but let him off lightly. Claude was forced to act grateful. Spika could see they weren't on good terms. Spika walked alone, still puzzled about what a coven could be. Suddenly, she heard a girl's voice calling for help. Rushing to investigate, she found a girl stuck on a wall. The scene felt oddly familiar, like something from a doujian. Spika asked the girl how she got stuck, and the girl explained that she had tripped and ended up stuck to the wall. Spika tried to free her by pulling on her legs, but she remained trapped due to her chest. Eventually, with a lot of effort, they managed to free the girl from the wall. Grateful for the assistance, the girl, whose name was Io Taurus, thanked Spika. Spika was surprised to see that Io was quite attractive and seemed older than her. Io revealed that she was also a freshman, which shocked Spika because of the difference in the sizes of their respective holy mountains. Spika's eyes widened in disbelief. Io hoped she would end up in the same coven as Spika. Spika, feeling a bit shy, asked what exactly a coven was. Io explained that a coven was basically a group of 12 students at Diana, who shared the same classroom and dorms for 3 years. Spika then understood that whoever she ended up with in her coven was pretty important. She remembered how Claude had hinted that he'd make sure she was in his coven. Spika crossed her fingers, hoping she'd meet some nice people. Io, who had been at Diana since middle school, reassured her that the others were all nice, hardworking kids. Spika hoped Io was right. Io then suggested they check out the bulletin board to see which coven they were in. Just then, Spika accidentally bumped into another student who had a serious expression on his face. The guy immediately panicked, asking if Spika was okay or if she got hurt. Spika assured him she was fine, and he visibly relaxed, relieved that someone as beautiful as Spika wasn't hurt. Spika felt a bit embarrassed since it seemed like he was hitting on her, but he kept flirting and introduced himself to Io as Libra. Spika quickly realized that he was just a smooth talker, a bit of a player. Just then, a girl with short hair passed by, and the male student went over to return her dropped handkerchief. Spika wondered who the male student was. Io remembered that he was the vice principal's son. Spika felt shocked and worried about how she would fare in school. Libra then took hold of the short-haired girl's hand to get her attention. Spika felt concerned, but Io reassured her, saying she knew them from middle school. Suddenly, Libra narrowly avoided being punched by the short-haired girl. Io introduced the girl, actually the boy, as Gemini. Gemini told Libra to leave and to stop calling him a lady. Spika suddenly realized that Gemini had been wearing pants all along and questioned if she had been seeing things incorrectly. Libra apologized for the misunderstanding. However, Gemini was already angry, feeling disgusted, and threatened to harm Libra right there. Libra countered by calling Gemini a germaphobe. The two boys' argument caught the attention of their classmates. Spika attempted to intervene, but someone with a louder voice beat her to it, telling them to knock it off. Then they all noticed a girl swinging from the chandelier who gracefully landed like a superhero. She declared that fighting was wrong and warned them that everyone was watching. She seemed annoyed that someone other than a Leo, like herself, was getting all the attention. Damn, she's got some thick thighs, Spika thought, surprised by the girl's muscular build. Libra was astonished to see the daughter of the noble Regulus house hanging from the chandelier. Leo accused her of seeking attention. Gemini, Leo, and Libra brandished their wands ready to duel while Io was preoccupied with thoughts of lunch. Spika was taken aback, having heard that people from the Diana house were usually nice. More students gathered around and Spika debated whether she should step in to stop the fight. However, her curiosity about the type of magic they could use kept her from intervening. Libra had activated his Libra magic, Eyes of Themis, first. Gemini decided to throw a punch, curious if Libra would be okay with his eyes closed. To everyone's surprise, Libra managed to dodge all of Gemini's punches effortlessly, even with his eyes shut. He confidently stated he could evade Gemini's attacks blindfolded. Gemini questioned if that was true, and suddenly another Gemini materialized behind Libra as Gemini activated his magic. The two Geminis then kicked Libra and challenged him to dodge them. While the other students fretted over the escalating confrontation, Leo took on a pouncing stance, unwilling to be left out of the spotlight. She vanished in a leap, and the next moment a massive lioness was seen pouncing on one of the Geminis. They collided with the nearby wall, and as the dust settled, Leo urged them to face her instead. Libra had declined the invitation, even though he knew it was from a beautiful girl. Spika trembled with fear, hoping to avoid them for the next 3 years. Suddenly a rock hit her and Io became concerned. Spika assured her she was okay, but Io became angry because Spika owed her. She activated her Taurus magic and grew into a giantess, urging them to stop fighting. The boys thought the girls were acting crazy, while Leo grew jealous of the attention Io was receiving. Spika then confronted Io, telling her she was revealing too much to everyone around her. Io felt embarrassed and covered her skirt, accidentally hitting her head on the ceiling and getting knocked out. As Io fell towards Spika, our main character could see that she would be killed by a butt on the first day of school. Suddenly, Io stopped midair. Claude appeared and reminded everyone they were not on a playground. Spika and most of the students were surprised to see Claude, who was rumored to have returned to Diana. Gemini was angry and asked why Claude had returned. Unaware of Claude sneaking up behind him, he suddenly sent Gemini and Libra flying, saying he had come back for them. He then began naming Castor Gemini, Astrea Libra, Leo Regulus, Io Taurus, and Spika one by one, declaring them as part of his group, his Coven. Spika was shocked to hear this, realizing she would have to endure the next 3 years with the troublesome students she had just witnessed causing chaos. Earlier, Claude had spoken to Jana, who promptly arranged for Spika to join his Coven. However, she reminded him of his tarnished reputation as a teacher and the lack of trust from the students. In order to regain their trust, Jana devised a test for Claude. She picked students with exceptional potential for his Coven, but they were also quite strong-willed. In the hallway, Claude called out to some students. More students were already waiting in the classroom: Capella Capricorn, Yu Aries, Mero Pisces, Chiron Sagittarius Aldea, Tarf Cancer, Hana Sassarido, and Aria Aquarius. Jana wanted Claude to ensure that every student graduated without anyone quitting. If he couldn't achieve that, he wouldn't belong in Diana anymore. Everyone, including Claude, headed to the classroom. Claude couldn't believe he was back and decided to embrace the challenge as he began his new life as a teacher. Suddenly, Claude started shining and everyone noticed that he had disappeared, leaving only his hat behind. A black cat then appeared and everyone found it adorable. Little did they know the cat was actually Claude, who had used up Spika's magic after getting involved in the hallway scuffle. Spika became angry and asked what to do next, confusing the others with her actions and words. It's important to note that only Spika could hear Claude while he was in his cat form. Claude then cutely asked to reverse the curse. The first day of school ended with Spika dropping out of the class and the class being dismissed due to Claude's absence. Soon after, on a new morning, Io tried to wake up Spika, who was asking for a few more minutes of sleep. Io didn't have a choice but to use her strength to lift Spika's bed and decided to carry her to class. Flustered, Spika asked Io to put her down. However, Io heard her too late as she forced her way through the door, causing Spika's face to smack against the wall. Spika was living in a dorm 10 minutes away from Diana and shared the building with her classmates and Claude. Every morning, the house mistress greeted them and prepared delicious food for breakfast. Almost everyone acted rowdy when it came to food, except for Leo, who behaved elegantly since she came from a noble household. Spika apologized for bothering her with the noise. Leo accepted her apology, then chugged down the tea directly from the pot in a barbaric way. While everyone was busy with breakfast, Spika always took the chance to sneak away. Her destination was Claude's room, where Claude as a cat waited for Spika's help. This time, the house mistress noticed Spika entering the room and wondered what was happening inside. She was shocked to hear Spika complaining about kissing Claude every day. She was even more confused and flustered when she heard Claude asking for Spika's kiss, and something about his butt. Inside the room, Claude agreed that it was a hassle to break the curse every single day. Spika wondered what to do. Claude explained that he turned back into a cat if he spent too much magic. Even if he didn't do anything drastic, Spika's rebirth magic would eventually run out by nightfall. On top of that, Spika could only use rebirth magic once per day since she needed sleep. Claude then reminded Spika to become a first-class sorcerer. Spika wondered how she could become one in 3 years. Claude explained that Spika needed to pass the annual classification exams held at the Royal Palace. He mentioned that Diana only had one student who managed to pass the first-class exam before graduating. Spika was impressed and asked who it was. Claude casually revealed that it was him. Spika then regretted complimenting Claude. For now, Claude asked Spika to aim for the valedictorian position for the next 3 years. He told her that if she couldn't achieve that, she wouldn't become a first-class sorcerer. He also warned her that she would be dismissed if her grades were low. He explained that every year, the bottom 10% of students were dismissed, as per Diana's rules. He wanted Spika to enjoy her school life, but advised her not to get carried away. Claude got out of his room to prepare for class. He greeted the house mistress, who suddenly acted violently toward him, even calling him a monster. She found it scandalous that a teacher and a student were meeting at the crack of dawn. Spika, meanwhile, knew Claude wouldn't dismiss her and decided to have some fun. Morning classes at Diana started with basic education courses, and students from all covens joined together. Spika had a hard time understanding the fast lectures. In contrast, a female classmate slept through the class without worries, even drooling. Spika tried waking her classmate up because the teacher was glaring in their direction. However, the teacher became even more furious when Spika spoke in his class. He threatened Spika to solve the equation he had been discussing earlier, and the other students felt bad for her, seeing she was being made an example of. Just when Spika wanted some help, the sleeping student suddenly stood up. The teacher wondered if the student knew the answer. Spika claimed the girl had been sleeping the whole time. However, the girl named Yua Aries started reciting the process of calculating the equation and gave the correct result as the answer. The teacher quickly praised Yu and told Spika to learn from her. Spika found Yu was smart, but Yu didn't respond and went back to sleep immediately. Spika wondered if she was just stupid after seeing someone answer correctly despite sleeping in class. In the afternoon, the class had practical magic lessons with Claude. To assess the students' aptitudes, he instructed them to catch the bunny-like creatures called loporns, using their own magic in 30 minutes. He claimed it would be hard for normal people to catch them, but he had high hopes for the students of Diana. He then released the loporns for everyone to catch. Arya doubted that Spika could catch one, but Spika reminded her of how he had tied up the golem before. Spika knew she wasn't the smartest, but she was still confident in her magic. She then tried using anima, but as soon as she started chanting, the loporn sensed the danger and hopped away, dodging all the vines. Spika was shocked at how quickly it escaped the magic attack. Claude then explained that loporns could sense magic with their horns and would flee at even the faintest tingle. Hana Sasurio then used her Scorpio magic to knock out the loporns with a paralyzing mist. She picked up the loporns and asked them not to blame her. Claude was impressed to see her use poison magic with paralyzing effects. However, others like Spika and Io also got caught up in Hana's magic. Meanwhile, Tarf Cancer used his cancer magic to create a huge wall around himself. The walls trapped the loporns and he was able to cuddle with them. Seeing his move, Spika was impressed and wondered if she could do the same. However, she wasn't confident in her casting time and knew she couldn't catch one at this rate. She recalled Claude's warning about dismissal, which made her panic. Distracted, a loporn charged at her with its horn and knocked her out. After the class, Claude announced that Arya had caught the most lophorns and came in first place, while Spika, who caught none, ended up last. Spika remained unconscious until the class ended. Angered, Claude asked Spika what she had been doing. He told her to see him after school for extra lessons because she was at risk of being dismissed for real. Spika trembled at first, then suddenly looked despondent. This surprised Claude, who was used to seeing Spika always smiling. In the afternoon, Spika sighed as she climbed the stairs, thinking about how she was far behind the others in academics and practical skills. She didn't expect herself to be doing so poorly. She remembered that the bottom 10% would get dismissed every year. Forget about being a valedictorian. She knew she might not even be a student for much longer. Spika then entered a room and found him waiting for her with a huge telescope. He wondered if Spika was even sorry for being late. Feeling down, Spika knew she was just going to get scolded. She then wondered what the room they entered was instead of Claude's room. Claude claimed it was an observatory. Since Diana had several of them, he decided to use one. He then activated his magic and Spika suddenly found herself in the middle of outer space, surrounded by stars. Claude explained that the whole room was filled with projection and levitation magic to replicate outer space. Spika found everything beautiful. He then started pointing at different stars and ended up with the big bluish one called Spika. Spika knew that her name was based on the star's name. Claude explained that Spika was actually 2 stars spinning around each other really fast, appearing as one. Spika wondered if they were having an astronomy lesson. Claude then said that the light Spika emitted was actually 20 times brighter than their sun. He meant that Spika might seem weak alone but shined brighter because there were 2 stars. Spika realized Claude was trying to cheer her up. Claude went quiet for a while and then exclaimed that he was not. His reaction made Spika giggle at first and then laugh out loud. She said that laughter was indeed the best medicine. Claude got frustrated and asked her what was so funny. Spika understood that Claude worried for her, and with his help she might achieve her goal of becoming a first-class sorcerer. Claude then told her she needed to complete another lesson and should catch at least 12 Loporns before sleeping. In the end, Claude was still a strict master. A week later, Claude went to report to Jana, the school's headmistress. She asked about Claude's students, and Claude said they were satisfactory. Jana doubted this because she had heard differently from others. Yu had been sleeping like a log throughout classes. Leo was still seeking attention as usual. Astria had recently tried seducing a female faculty member, and Io kept destroying furniture due to her uncontrollable strength. Jana also mentioned that some of the students were problematic because of the nature of their magic. She said Claude's Coven had been given the nickname Pandora's Box. Claude laughed and agreed it was accurate. Jana said it was no joke because the biggest problem at the moment was caster Gemini. Even though he had graduated from Diana's middle school division, he kept causing trouble for other students and acting out. It seemed like he only skipped Claude's class. Jana reminded Claude that if Castor didn't earn credits in his class, he would be expelled. She also calmly reminded Claude about the conditions for him to keep his job as a teacher at Diana. Soon after, Spika was shocked to learn that Claude would be forced to leave Diana if even one of his students was dismissed. Spika worried she would not get the first-class sorcerer she wanted, and Claude didn't like that idea either. Claude asked Spika to bring Castor into their class, but Spika found it difficult because Castor was scary. Claude wondered why Castor was specifically skipping his class, as he didn't have any reason to dislike him. Spika slipped out that it might be because of Claude's rude manners. She also claimed Claude accidentally offended Castor in some way and suggested being nice to him. Claude agreed since, in truth, he was a nice person, but Spika doubted that. Just then, Io saw the two of them. Claude thought it was a good time to ask Io where Castor was. Io then focused on listening and said she heard a fight happening nearby. Sure enough, a student suddenly got slammed to the floor. Spika was shocked, and Castor asked what they were looking at while stepping on the student. As always, Spika felt scared of him. Claude tried to wake up the unconscious student and asked Castor why he knocked him out. Castor said he had been touched, so he fought back. Claude understood that Castor wasn't at fault this time, but he warned him not to pick fights like this again, or he would get dismissed. Castor asked him to dismiss him if that was the case. Claude then said he never would because Castor was his dear student. He said it would be worth attending class. Castor then agreed to attend class if Claude quit teaching. Claude got angry and began losing his patience. Spika saw that she needed to do something. She tried to convince Castor with a trembling voice, but he ignored her. Just then, Io approached Castor and asked him to attend class. Castor told her to stay away. Io insisted because she was worried that Castor would get dismissed. She reminded him of how nice he used to be. Cursing out loud, Castor exclaimed that he was going. In the next scene, Castor was visibly angry as he attended Claude's class. Claude instructed them to group up and find mandrakes, reminding them to avoid the off-limit parts of the mountain. He showed them what mandrakes looked like. Io was glad that Castor came, but Castor blamed her for being nosy. Spika, Io, and Castor were put into one group, but Castor was slacking off. Io got mad and uprooted the tree Castor was leaning on. Castor started helping because he couldn't believe how incredibly strong Io was, as always. Spika tried to start a conversation with him, but suddenly she got some dirt on her skirt. Castor handed her a handkerchief. Spika wondered if it was okay and was surprised to see how girly the handkerchief looked. She realized Castor wasn't scary at all and commented that he actually liked cute things. However, Castor got angry at her comment. Just then, Claude came over to check on their group and offered assistance if they needed it. Spika could see that Claude was putting on his nice person act well. Castor just clicked his tongue. Claude then tried to give lectures about mandrakes until Castor told him to shut up. He told Claude to stop the act because it was gross to watch. He claimed he had only attended class once and wouldn't return. Claude then said Castor was talking big. Spika reminded him to act nice, but Claude said he had to be honest to deal with Castor. Claude then said men don't hold petty grudges. Castor agreed with the petty part and claimed Claude never paid attention to them. His words confused Spika. Castor said someone like Claude couldn't teach him anything. Claude asked what he meant. Angered, Castor reminded Claude how he ran away when the heretics attacked. He abandoned the students and never came back for them. This brought a dead silence to the area. Spika was too stunned to speak. As Claude tried to explain something, Io suddenly shouted that she had found a mandrake. When the others stayed silent, she called out to them again. However, she tripped over a rock and fell toward the river. Castor quickly ran to her and asked her to take his hand. But Io used her Taurus magic to grow larger, making Castor's help unnecessary. Castor then fell into the water and started getting swept away because his clothes became heavy with water. Io reached out to help and Castor grabbed her huge finger, but her hand slipped and he got carried away by the river's current, cursing Claude in his mind. Downstream, a female student climbed out of the water and wondered where she had ended up after being washed far away. She complained about being soaked. At that moment, Claude arrived with Spika, and Claude's eyes widened when he realized that what they thought was Castor was actually a girl. Spika was shocked to see Castor as a girl. Claude was surprised, not because of her appearance but because he recognized her from the past. Spika was shocked when Castor turned into a girl and wondered if all Geminis could do that. The female Castor then started teasing Claude for staring at her body too much. Claude claimed he didn't look at his students that way. The female Castor called him boring. Spika wondered if Castor's personality also changed. Io then explained that the one in front of them was Pollux. Pollux was happy to see Io again and explained to Spika that she was Castor's twin sister, and they were sharing one body. When a man touched Pollux, Castor came out, and when touched by a girl, Pollux came out. She appeared because Io touched her a while ago. Spika wondered if all Geminis were like them. Pollux claimed it was something unique to them and that Spika could see it if she used some regular Gemini magic. Spika wanted to see a demonstration. Suddenly, Pollux stripped off all her clothes. Spika was shocked and quickly covered Claude's eyes. Pollux then used her Gemini magic mirror alignment on Spika. Instantly, Pollux was dressed like Spika. She explained that her light-based magic could scan and copy anything. She copied Spika's uniform but noticed it was tight in the bust area, saying she should have copied Io's uniform instead. Spika exclaimed that her uniform was fine and complained that all the girls in their coven had large breasts except her. Claude saw that Pollux was fine and reminded them to continue gathering herbs. Pollux then used her magic, and another Pollux appeared holding a jar with a mandrake. Spika was shocked to see the duplicate Pollux and the herb. Claude checked himself and realized it was the herb he had gotten. Pollux laughed out loud, having managed to break Claude's calm demeanor. She explained her magic could bend light and make her copy invisible. Claude realized Pollux had made her copy when she removed her clothes and had it go through his robe while everyone was distracted by her naked body. Pollux confirmed Claude's deduction. Spika was surprised that Claude managed to see through Pollux's magic. Pollux then claimed she would go home since she had completed the task. Claude told her to return the herb, but Pollux didn't want to. She told him to take it by force. Claude said he would never raise his hand against a student. Pollux could see that Claude cared for his students, but she told him to stop pretending because she knew he would abandon them in an instant if it came to it. Claude then realized that the Gemini twins held a grudge against him because of what had happened in the past. Spika wondered what Pollux was talking about and whether the rumors were true after all. Io then told Pollux to return the herbs, and offered her help to find more. Pollux didn't respond to Io. Spika agreed to finish the serious conversation after class. Seeing that the others were on Claude's side, Pollux asked them to leave her and Castor alone. She then used her light magic to blind them, apologized for troubling the class, and suddenly disappeared from their sight. Spika asked what had happened between the Gemini twins and Claude. She wanted to know if Claude had really abandoned them. Claude explained that 2 years ago, when he came to Diana to get his teaching license, he met Pollux, who was in middle school. Pollux was kind to him, even though they weren't in the same coven. On the day the heretics attacked, he left her and her friends even though they needed him. This was mostly true. Spika was shocked by Claude's actions. Claude could only say that much, but Spika wanted to know more. Claude claimed he was carrying a sin he couldn't share with Spika until he had paid his dues. Claude then left the girls behind to look for Pollux and told them to stay put. Spika felt sad to learn that the rumors were true. Just then, Io shouted, noticing someone in the woods. They wondered if it was Pollux and saw something that looked like someone hanging by their neck. Spika ran to help, but it wasn't a person. It was something creepy instead. Spika and Io got stuck on the sticky ground around the hanging human-like vine. Pollux laughed and asked what the two were doing. She found the situation awkward since she had just made a dramatic exit. She warned them that the area was off-limits and then noticed the Illicum, a monster that lured in humans. She realized they were in danger, but it was too late because the monster was already watching them. It had camouflaged itself as a tree. The girls found the bug disgusting. The insects started attacking, and Pollux dodged. Spika noticed that she was trapped and told Pollux to escape first and ask for Claude's help. She and Io prepared to hold out until Claude returned. Pollux was curious about how Spika could be afraid of Castor, but not the monstrous bug. She then used her Gemini magic, Agria, to defeat the bug in one shot. She claimed there was no need to get help from a loser like Claude since she would protect them herself. When Pollux enrolled in Diana, she was captivated by Claude's magic and had admired him ever since. In the present, Spika and Io found Pollux amazing and wondered if Castor could do the same. Pollux said her older brother's magic was terrible. Spika remarked that gender-swapping magic was also cool, and Pollux was pleased to hear it. Pollux mentioned that some people found their situation creepy, but she didn't feel lonely because Castor was with her. She then expressed her amazement at how Spika stood up against the bug, unlike Claude. As Spika planned to look for Claude next, Io started asking the girls where they were. Confused, Pollux asked what Io meant. They then discovered Io's head had been bitten off by another monster bug. The two girls shrieked in shock and soon saw more monster bugs around them. Meanwhile, Claude sighed in surprise when the monster bugs attacked him. He then saw Pollux's magic from a distance and assumed a fight had broken out. He wanted to go to the girls, but he had to deal with the monster bugs attacking him first. Back with the girls, they used their magic to defend against the monster bugs. However, they were getting tired because of the large number of monsters. Both Spika and Io showed signs of fatigue. Pollux tried to cover for them, but one of the monsters suddenly grabbed her. However, it was just her clone, and Pollux fought back. On the day the heretics attacked, she and Castor had sworn to protect everyone and promised to get stronger. As she thought she could keep fighting, her magic began to show signs of her mana running out, and Castor warned her about it. Pollux asked him not to talk to her because she was busy. Castor told her to run, but Pollux refused since that would mean abandoning Spika and Io. This made Castor remember their promise. Pollux wanted to fight with or without mana. She continued to struggle until her mana ran out. A monster then tried to deliver a killing blow to Pollux while Spika and Io could only watch. Just then, Claude appeared and cut down the monster's sides. The girls were surprised to see Claude save them just in time. Pollux told Claude to run away like the coward he had been before. Claude covered Pollux with his robe and swore to protect them this time. Pollux went silent. Spika then asked what the bugs were, and Claude explained that they were demonic bugs known as walking forests. He said a swarm could wipe out a village, and that very swarm was on their way to them. Io worried that even Claude couldn't handle such numbers, but Claude told them not to worry, since he would take out every last one. He then used his Sagittarius magic Gale Blow, Rain of Arrows. Pollux's eyes widened as she found Claude's magic beautiful. That magic easily wiped out the incoming walking forests. It was the same magic she had seen before, the magic she always admired. Claude's magic. She suddenly felt nostalgic. The bugs were wiped out and Spika celebrated. Claude claimed he would check if there were any stragglers and told the girls to stay put. However, Claude was actually running out of magic and would turn into a cat anytime soon. Spika understood his signal, but before he left, he bowed in front of Pollux and apologized to her and Castor. He knew the kids had a hard time and he didn't want to make excuses for his absence. He asked for another chance to protect his students this time and wanted to prove it to the twins. Since he was out of time, Claude suddenly disappeared, surprising the girls. Pollux wondered what Claude's problem was. She didn't know that Claude was still nearby, disguised as a cat, and almost got caught. Spika then told Pollux that Claude must have had his reasons but couldn't talk about them. Pollux angrily asked why, as it didn't make sense to her. Spika pointed out that Claude had saved them this time. She told Pollux to check the tattered robes, signs that Claude had rushed to help them. Spika said she wanted to trust Claude for once. Pollux said she was thankful to Claude for saving them a short while ago, but that wasn't enough to convince her. She still questioned how Claude had run away during the terrorist attack. She now wanted to find out what kind of person Claude really was, and decided to attend his class from now on. Spika and Io were glad, and Claude was thankful. However, Claude still found it strange that demonic bugs had appeared in the off-limits area. He assumed that someone had deliberately brought them there. Soon after, he saw some men checking the corpses of the bugs that Claude had killed. One of them asked if they should kill Claude now that he was back. A robed man with a star tattoo on his neck said Claude was not their target this time, but the girl with rebirth magic, who turned out to be Spika. After the outdoor classes, the Claude Coven students were tasked with using the collected mandrakes to make mana potions. Since the incident in the woods, Castor had been attending classes. However, he still felt uncomfortable around Astria, who wanted to be close to Pollux. Leo also tried to show off things that were not meant for the class, like a deer she had captured. Spika even suggested having a pot-making class with everyone. It looked like Claude would have a hard time teaching this unruly group. Arya just silently stared at Spika. and when asked, she claimed it was nothing. After classes, Spika continued her training with Claude in catching loporns. Seeing how driven Spika was, Claude told her to focus on the upcoming midterms first. Spika complained that her casting time for anima was too long, giving the loporns a chance to escape. She wanted to learn other spells, but Claude wanted her to fully master anima first. Like the great sorcerer he was, Claude exclaimed that every sorcerer uses spells differently and that the possibilities are endless. What makes a great sorcerer, he said, is thinking outside the box. However, he was mostly just showing off how splendid his speech was. Spika started thinking outside the box. Claude used Arya as an example, noting how she could manipulate water with her imagination. He suggested asking Arya for advice, but Spika found the idea revolting. Claude thought they were friends, but Spika vehemently declared they were enemies. Since childhood, whenever Spika picked up a hobby, Arya would always surpass her, whether it was embroidery, horseback riding, cooking, or even magic. Spika expressed her frustration at seeing Arya improve and mock her. Claude reminded her that they were running out of time. Spika agreed that she needed to get stronger quickly. She noticed how strong her classmates were and worried that she would be left behind. In the end, Spika asked Arya for help, but Arya kept teasing Spika about whether she would teach her the tricks of Aquarius magic. Spika tried to leave, but Arya stopped her, saying she would teach her. However, Arya wanted Spika to act like a cute puppy. Spika expected such teasing since Arya knew she would be scared. Compared to kissing a cat's butthole, Spika decided to act like a puppy in front of Arya. Arya was surprised since this was not the Spika she knew. Arya then told Spika to follow her. However, Spika soon found herself in the bath with Arya for an hour. Arya claimed that taking a bath calmed the nerves and stimulated mana for water magic. Spika completely believed her, but then Arya revealed she was just joking. Naturally, Spika got mad and called her a bitch. Arya then explained that there was nothing to teach since Aquarius magic simply involved bending water into whatever shape one imagined. Arya would touch and see things, memorizing their structure. Spika was surprised because she had always thought of Arya as a genius, but it turned out she was also hardworking. Spika thanked her, and Arya asked why she needed tips. Spika said she wanted to catch loporns on her own. Arya sighed, knowing that Spika just wanted to impress her idol. Arya then challenged her to a contest to see who could catch the most loporns next week. The loser would have to be the winner's maid for a day. Spika didn't want to lose but still accepted the challenge, telling Arya to prepare her maid outfit. Spika left the bath and Arya silently watched her, recalling how Spika had been refusing her invitations lately because she had extra classes with Claude. Arya had been feeling bored recently, but it might have been something else. Spika then began preparing for the contest, and before she knew it, the day of the contest arrived. Claude remembered that he had only asked Arya for advice, not a contest. He wondered if Spika stood a chance. Spika told Claude to watch her because she had practiced hard on her new move. Arya started using her Aquarius magic, sending torrents of water toward the herds of loporns. Claude was impressed, and Arya already knew she was the winner. However, Spika still had her trump card. She shaped her anima magic like a catapult to launch herself. As Spika held onto the catapult, Claude was speechless and Arya started laughing. Spika had decided she could just catch the loporns with her bare hands since they could detect magic. Spika crashed to the ground and Claude wondered if she was okay. The cloud of dust settled and Spika stood up holding a loporn, bleeding from her nose. Arya laughed at her for trying so hard. Spika exclaimed that she didn't want to lose to Arya because she was her rival. Arya was surprised and started laughing again. In the end, Arya caught 20 loporns while Spika only managed to catch 10. Spika felt disappointed, even though Arya told her she did a great job. Arya admitted that she had been feeling bored and lonely lately because Spika wasn't spending time with her. That's why she had been looking forward to their contest. Arya also confessed that she never got tired of watching Spika and hoped they could hang out again. Spika was surprised and realized that Arya really loved her a lot. Arya agreed and asked Spika to only think about and look at her. Claude was happy that the two were bringing out the best in each other. The next day, Spika became Arya's exclusive maid and all the other students made fun of her. In the end, Spika still hated Arya's teasing. The following day comes, bringing with it a wave of terror for Claude, who found himself trapped in his feline form. Students swarmed around him like zombies hungry for brains. Claude couldn't fathom how he had landed himself in such a dire predicament. The day prior, Claude had mentioned to Spika the need to select a leader for their group. He had asked for her input, but Spika seemed clueless about what qualities a leader should possess. Essentially, the Coven leader served as a substitute for the teacher, responsible for managing the class in their absence. When Spika tentatively suggested herself for the role, Claude promptly dismissed the idea, insisting that the leader needed to be diligent and unwavering. He recalled past instances where professors had randomly chosen leaders, resulting in chaos within the class. It was a weighty responsibility. Feeling indirectly labeled as irresponsible, Spika urged Claude to consider who would truly excel as the leader. Claude expressed his desire to understand his peers on a deeper level, beyond surface impressions. This left Spika convinced that Claude was just as clueless as she was. In an attempt to find a solution, Spika proposed observing their classmates' daily routines on their next day off. However, Claude balked at the idea, preferring to spend the day sleeping and doing nothing. Spika persisted, offering her assistance, and eventually, Claude relented. He set a time for their meeting and reminded Spika not to oversleep, a task he believed should have been her responsibility. The next day, it was already 11 in the morning and Spika hadn't shown up. She was still sleeping, so Claude decided to go look for her to turn her back into a human. As he walked down the hallway, Marrow Pisces spotted him and said he was cute. Marrow then picked him up and named him Elizabeth, taking him to her room and dressing him up in doll clothes. Feeling embarrassed, Claude ran away, deciding that Marrow wasn't leadership material because she seemed to live in her own little world. Based on this, Claude figured it would be better to complete the task as a cat. Claude then went to the dining hall where Chiron Sagittarius Aldea and Tarf Cancer were eating. Chiron called him disgusting and Claude got angry. Tarf then picked him up and apologized for Chiron's words. Claude could tell that Tarf was good at petting. Tarf suggested that Claude might be hungry. Chiron then offered Claude some expensive food meant for royalty, as he was a proud member of the royal family. Claude was completely focused on the luxurious food. Tarf suggested keeping Claude as their dorm's pet cat. Seeing Claude's anatomy, Chiron decided to call him Biggest McBalls. Claude got mad and punched the prince before running away. Claude had hoped the prince would be a good leader, but he seemed lacking too. In his haste to locate Spika, Claude hurriedly knocked on a door, mistaking it for Spika's room. Instead, it belonged to Hana Sasoricho, who peered out eerily from inside. Hana silently seized Claude and pulled him into her room, which was filled with eerie objects. Claude felt uneasy as Hana remained silent, fixating on him. She revealed she was researching new poisons and required cat claws for her next concoction. Claude was alarmed and broke free from her grasp, inadvertently knocking over bottles nearby, splashing liquid on himself. Hana trembled and forcefully held onto Claude, explaining that the liquid was a pheromone enhancer attracting other organisms. Claude was puzzled why Hana would create such an aphrodisiac as she unsettlingly gazed at him. She attempted to kiss him, but Claude used his Sagittarius magic to evade her. He fled outside, removing Hana from consideration as a potential leader due to her experiments. However, Claude unexpectedly encountered Io, Leo, Astria, and Castor. The 4 students were completely affected by the magical aphrodisiac splashed on Claude. Claude was being chased by his students. He grew tired from running and eventually found himself at a corner. The 4 students approached him in a creepy manner and he attempted to flee once more. However, his escape route was blocked by someone. Claude realized he had no way out when he saw Capella Capricorn standing in front of him. Surprisingly, Capella scolded the others for frightening a poor cat. This made Claude have an epiphany. Capella then detected a strange scent in the air, recognizing it as magic emanating from Claude. She understood that it was the cause of the others' odd behavior. However, Capella resisted the effects of the magic on her own body by biting her lip. Claude admired her composure. Capella then asked Claude if she could absorb the spell he had cast using her Capricorn magic. Claude remembered that Capricorn magic could consume the magic of others. As a result, the charm was broken, and the others were confused about their actions. Capella spoke directly to Claude, instructing him to come to her if he needed anything else. Claude was left speechless, finally recognizing Capella as the leader of his coven. Meanwhile, Spika woke up briefly but soon fell asleep again. Shortly after, Capella found herself surprised to be appointed as the coven leader. Claude thought she was perfect for the role, but Capella wanted to know why. Claude said Capella was a diligent student and reliable. This made Capella start trembling, and Yu said Claude had touched a nerve. Capella got angry and insisted she wasn't diligent, even hinting that she had a rebellious side. Yu explained that Capella always reacted strongly when called diligent. Capella even threatened to break all the windows in the dorm. However, despite her protests, Capella was indeed a hard worker and eventually agreed to take on the leadership role. During another class, Marrow and Arya both activated their magic together and created a huge aquarium with fishes inside. Everyone was impressed, and Claude quickly analyzed how the two managed to create the aquarium. Marrow showed off how she called over her fish friends, but one was already munching on her like a snack. Claude then explained that for the day's lesson, they would learn how to combine different kinds of magic. Claude then told them to pair up and give the magic combination a shot. Spika started panicking about who to pick. She then saw Hana and approached her, asking if they could pair up together. Hana asked why and wondered if Spika even knew her magic. Spika claimed she did and found Hana's poison interesting. She was amazed at how Hana managed to paralyze the Loporns at once with a single magic spell. However, Hana refused to pair up with Spika, and that hit her hard. Spika wondered if she somehow offended Hana, but Hana just walked away to go home. Spika worried that she was hated and worried that the class would not be even with Hana going home. Io then appeared and asked Spika to join her and Leo if she wanted to. Spika started crying upon seeing her angel Io. The rest of the class was also getting rowdy, pairing up for the upcoming middle trials. Claude then grabbed their attention and reminded them that the middle trials were the next day. Everyone got serious. Claude explained that they had to clear a dungeon chosen specifically for their magic. If they failed, they couldn't advance to the next year. He asked his students to show off what they had learned over the past 3 months and strive to be the best in their year level. Spika was getting anxious since it was her first exam in Diana. After class, Claude approached Spika and told her to rest instead of attending the after-class training. He even wished her luck for her exam. Spika then realized that Claude had been with her every single day, training her. She wanted to make him proud. Spika then admitted that she might not become the top of her year, but she wanted to become the top student of Claude's Coven. With a disappointed face, Claude wondered if Spika was sure. Spika was shocked by his reaction. Claude then pointed out that Spika didn't keep promises and just slept through the day when they had an appointment. He even shared that he was humiliated when Mero dressed him like a doll, and when Hana almost kissed him because of the aphrodisiac. His words totally shocked Spika. Claude then left and told Spika to do what she could and left her alone. He didn't expect her to say some words of resolution and assumed that she had matured a bit. Contrary to his words, Spika was still in shock as she imagined Hana kissing her idol Claude. She totally couldn't focus on the exam at this rate. That night, Hana made a call from the dorm's phone, asking someone to tell her mother about her decision to take the middle trials. She promised to use her Scorpio magic to excel in her class. The person on the other end of the line understood her request and wished her luck. Hana seemed determined to succeed. On the day of the exam, the students traveled by blimps to the dungeons. Each person was occupied with their own tasks, but Capella, their leader, reminded them to settle down. Arya began teasing Spika, suggesting she might not return from the dungeon alive. However, Spika already appeared worn out and discouraged. Claude felt anxious, wondering why Spika seemed so exhausted even after he had advised her to rest. Suddenly, Io noticed that it had become dark outside. To their surprise, a griffin was blocking their view. Everyone was astonished to see such massive birds soaring in the sky. Soon they realized they had reached their destination, the Valley of Altair. As everyone got off the blimps, Claude explained that griffins built their nests in dark areas where they stored gold. They were known to be dangerous because they had been aggressive toward humans. The students had until sunset to retrieve any gold items from the dungeon, and the faster they returned, the better their grades would be. Everyone feared going inside the griffin's nest. To ensure their safety, Claude provided magic items for them to wear. The bracelets of Hermes had teleportation magic and could help the students exit the dungeon whenever they needed. However, if they used the bracelets, they would automatically fail, but they were their lifelines if they were truly in danger. Claude said griffins might be stronger than the golems in the entrance exam, but he believed magic would be crucial. While Claude continued to talk, Leo and Arya got excited and started acting. Tarf told Chiron to move, and Capella dragged the sleepy ewe. Spika watched everyone leave, feeling terrified. Despite her fear, she knew she had to be brave and faster than anyone else to prove herself to Claude. Suddenly, a griffin tried to scare her with a strong gust of wind. She was surprised and dropped her wand. Hana then used her Scorpio magic to summon a huge scorpion and made it sting the griffin with its stinger. Spika was surprised and asked if Hana had saved her. Hana said she hadn't even noticed Spika and claimed she was just chasing off the griffin. She then started calling Spika stupid and suggested that she give up on the exam. Spika got angry hearing Hana's words. Meanwhile, Justice Libra wondered if Claude's Coven had just started the exam, and Claude confirmed that everyone had set out. Justice was happy to hear that since other covens had students give up before even trying. Justice hoped that Claude's students could all pass, but Claude doubted that. Still, he expected the students to surprise them by uncovering the true meaning of the dungeon.